Hello, and welcome to part one of my personal paranormal experiences. So here we are. It is Halloween season officially, although I've been sort of already celebrating since September 1st, but we're here. It's October, and I really wanted to sit down and talk about paranormal experiences. Now, if you have been here before, I've talked a little bit about how I'm obsessed with the paranormal. I listen to paranormal podcasts every single day. I have been watching, reading, listening, consuming paranormal media for many years. I'm super into it, but that's not to say that I don't try to debunk things. I don't have a skeptic filter, when I'm processing information. I always try to think about the skeptic side, but I think it's also important to have your mind open. If anything, it's brain exercise, But I do love paranormal stories of every kind, and unfortunately, I have not had very many of my own. Actually, I'm not going to say unfortunate because it might be a blessing. So I only have a small little handful of unexplained experiences. Now, I'm not including those that we all have, like something turns on by itself, or you thought you lost something and then boom, it's right there, right where you looked. Or you're in the woods and you hear a set of bipedal footsteps but you don't see anything. I'm not including things like that, but I guess we all have little tiny experiences like that. So I'm going to start off with a little thing that happened to me when I was in high school. Alright, so in high school we lived in a new house that we built in a new neighborhood. It was a new area. Personally, I don't really think that has anything to do with anything, but And I always got up early for school to take a shower, to blow dry my hair, to do makeup, blah, blah, blah. So it was like 5:45 probably when I got out of the shower one morning, and I heard this screaming. It's hard for me to remember what it sounded like, but I don't want to eliminate the possibility that sounded like cats fighting. And I don't know if you've ever heard a real cat fight, but it sounds really scary. And I did have cats, so maybe it was a cat fight. However, I was in my bathroom with the door closed on the second floor, and there were no windows. I wasn't necessarily within earshot of the outside, and all my cats were outside cats. But I heard the screaming, so it was enough to make me run out of the shower and go to the top of the stairs and look down and listen and see if I could hear anything else, and I couldn't. My dad was always awake when I was awake. He was an early riser as well. And I asked him, did you hear anything? And he was like, no. So, okay, whatever, continue on with my life. And I think it was soon after that, there was a period where I would hear, in the middle of the night, I would hear bangs and screams. It was really weird, and I don't think it was any sort of sleep paralysis or transitional hallucination when you're coming in or going out of sleep or anything like that. But regardless, if you've listened to a lot of paranormal stories, you may have put it together that it does something weird to you, especially if you are sleeping or something. You're just kind of well, roll over and go back to sleep, or it doesn't necessarily scare you. It has a strange way of taking away your fear when you really should be afraid, or you roll over and go back to sleep when you should really probably get up and be worried. I don't know. So this would happen, and I'd wake up and I'd be like, what? And I'd go back to sleep. Now let me try to explain what these sounds sounded like. It would be like boom, ah, boom, ah, boom, which is not a cat fight. That's not a cat fight. And I also wanted to add that we were pretty spaced out from our neighbors. We were probably on an acre. I'm not really good at that, at acreage, but it was very spaced out, so we didn't really have a lot of noise interference from neighbors. So I would hear this sometimes. I think it happened a few nights, and then there was even one night where it happened and it kept me awake because it was so loud. And what would you do? What would a logical person do in this situation? I'm not sure, but what I did was get up and go into the living room upstairs and just watched TV because this prevented me from sleeping. And while I watched TV, the bumping and screaming continued. I know that sounds like a load of crap. And I'm trying to remember if my sister heard it or not, because she slept upstairs in a different room. But I do remember one time one of her friends was spending the night and her friend said she could hear it, and she thought that I was she thought that I was stumbling around and I kept running into things and going, ah, boom, ah, like stubbing my toe or something, but of course I wasn't. Now what is that about? What is that? Also, how to explain my weird response to that? I was not afraid, and I really don't know why, because I'm actually a pretty frightenable person. So I remember getting on like a forum and like emailing some ghost lady. You know, at the time I was like, but my house is new, so this couldn't possibly happen simply because I have a new house, which now is ridiculous. But she told me that sometimes spirits do travel. That spirit might have been passing by, wanted me to know that it was there, which I guess is fine. But that wasn't really a great story, but I just always remembered it. Partly because like I didn't respond in any type of way. I just was like, well, gotta go watch TV now. I don't know. Okay, so that was my story number 1. Let's move on to story number 2. I am in college at this point, and it's a very small, old college town, and I was sleeping at my friend's house, and there was nobody home at the time because everybody was just like out and about, like at the bar or something, and I was sleeping. And I woke up at like 1 a.m. to go to the bathroom, and then when I came back from the bathroom, I was getting back in my bed, and I heard these 3 bangs on the wall, and it was like on the wall right over the head of the bed where I was sleeping, and it sounded kind of like an open palm slap on the wall. Bam, bam, bam. And I'm gonna hit the wall and see if it sounds similar. Yeah, it was kind of like that. Well, my first response was like, who is messing with me? Like, I was furious, and I ran out of the house and like ran out onto the front porch, and there were people walking by. There were people walking home from the bar and stuff, and I was like, was that you? And they were like, strangers, okay? And they're like, what? And they just kept walking. Let me explain the house a little bit. The bedroom I was sleeping in was in the very back of the house, and it was, you know, it had 2 walls that were facing the outside, you know. But when you really go behind there, it's very dark. Like, nobody ever goes back there. Even the people that live there didn't go back there because it was like overgrown and dark and stuff. And you know, when you do go outside a house and really look at where the floor would start and where the headboard and stuff, it was high. Like, it was on the first floor, but that's really high to get up from the outside. There was like a foundation under the house, so it did lift it up a little bit. And I'm not totally ruling out the fact that someone could have been messing with me, but it doesn't really seem likely. Anyway, so after all that, I was pretty freaked out and didn't want to go back in there until someone else came home. So those are my 2 little baby ghost stories. I know they're not much, but I'll just always remember them because they were freaking weird and unexplainable. I hope someone out there enjoyed them. It's really all I have to offer. But that's not actually all I have to offer, because next is part 2, which is my scary ghost story. And I'm also sharing a scary ghost story from a close personal friend. So that concludes my part 1. If you have any ghost stories you want to share, please tell me. I eat them like candy, and I'll see you in the next video. Get ready. you're in for a scare.